When it comes to video game franchises, there are few that I love as much as Elder Scrolls. These games have been a huge part of my childhood, and with mods, these games are practically immortal. But despite how great these games have been in the past, there are still a few improvements that Bethesda should really consider to make Elder Scrolls 6 the best possible game that it can be. In honor of the 6th installment of Elder Scrolls, let's talk about 6 things that Bethesda needs to improve for the next installment in the franchise. Number 1. More immersion. The Elder Scrolls games have done a good job of immersing the player overall, but I would say that Skyrim was not as strong as Morrowind or Oblivion when it came to immersion. There have been videos made covering Skyrim and its relatively shallow experience, and while I don't agree with all the complaints, and I think the videos are sometimes too harsh on a game that was made for the Xbox 360 and PS3, I can understand where they were coming from. Some of the world-altering choices you do in Skyrim feel like they barely have an impact in-game. For example, when you kill the Emperor during the Dark Brotherhood storyline, there is barely any acknowledgement of it. Which doesn't make any sense considering that you just killed the most powerful man in Tamriel. Like, you would expect maybe some more Thalmor to come in, maybe the Stormcloaks get some more strength since the leader of the Imperials just died, but none of that happens. The same lack of acknowledgement can be said for a lot of other events in the game as well, like killing Alduin, who is literally the World Eater. Going forward, I want Elder Scrolls 6 to have more immersion by adding more weight to the player's choices. When you do something that would alter the state of Tamriel, it should be acknowledged and shown in-game. The world should really change because of an event that happened or a choice that you made, and if your choices have drastic impacts, then this would add a whole new layer of replayability. Number 2. Combat. The combat in Elder Scrolls games has never been anything special, it just feels like it gets the job done. A lot of the weapon types feel extremely similar, like an axe just being a slower, more powerful version of a sword. The AI is also extremely easy to beat, as the enemies rarely block, and they never use a combo that is even slightly unpredictable. The fixes for these problems would be to have more differentiated weapon playstyles, and to have a lot more combinations for enemy attacks. The perfect example of both of these would be in the Monster Hunter games. The Monster Hunter games have weapons that are so similar but feel so different to play, and the enemies in Monster Hunter are more unpredictable and challenging to fight against. Some people might say that Monster Hunter's combat would be too challenging if it were implemented into an Elder Scrolls game. Especially given that combat has never been the focus of Elder Scrolls. The games have always been more geared toward exploration. But I would argue that nowadays, players wouldn't be opposed to having more challenging combat that has a bit more of a learning curve. Especially since that would make the game more rewarding and less monotonous to play at times. The combat by no means has to be as difficult as Monster Hunter or other fantasy games like Elden Ring, but the combat should still be a bit more challenging so the player feels more involved while playing. The varied weapon playstyles would also help a lot with replayability and trying different builds, and this would also just help add a nice unique identity to each weapon, rather than every item just feeling like a stat stick. And for the love of God, Bethesda, please, just give us spears. Number 3. Difficulty. While we are on the topic of combat being too easy, the recent Elder Scrolls games have been too easy in general. Morrowind was challenging and you had to sink yourself into the world to get directions plenty of times. Oblivion took the challenges of Morrowind and watered them down by giving players fast travel, a map, and easier ways to keep track of hints and clues. But Skyrim was an even more watered down version of Oblivion, with the puzzles and systems in the game feeling extremely easy overall. The puzzles in Skyrim never feel remotely challenging except for a select few, but overall the puzzles are not nearly as clever as they could be. Lockpicking in Skyrim is so easy that leveling up the lockpicking skill feels completely useless to an extent. Sneaking around and even speech feel extremely easy as well. Going forward, Elder Scrolls 6 needs to prioritize having more challenging puzzles, and systems like lockpicking, sneak, and speech need to be revamped so time put in these can be more rewarding for the player. Going back to the map, I would not be opposed to having a map that you need to explore to fill out in Elder Scrolls 6. Similar to the old school maps in Rust or any map that has Fog of War, it might be a nice change to have a map that fills itself out the more you explore, and this would further encourage just roaming around and investigating the world. But this is a much more trivial change, and if Bethesda decides to stick with their current map system, which I expect they will, then that's perfectly fine. Number 4. Make the game unique. The Elder Scrolls games have always been super unique, but the thing that I'm specifically referring to when I say make Elder Scrolls 6 unique would be the locations and side quests. Skyrim did a pretty good job of giving us varied locations and side quests, but with the technology that we have now, Elder Scrolls 6 can make some drastic improvements over its predecessor. Skyrim was great, but a lot of the caves and dungeons felt the same in certain parts. The Dwarven ruins were pretty fucking awesome, but only certain parts of these underground areas really stood out. The majority of these areas just seemed like filler to give the player some obstacles and the feeling of going deep and away from the mainland before they came across a grand location like Blackreach, for example. I would love to see the new Elder Scrolls game make every single dungeon and underground area unique. This might sound like a hefty task, but given now the fact that Elder Scrolls 6 will come out more than a decade later than Skyrim, I think it's completely possible, especially with the funding that this game will receive. They definitely have the ability to go through and make every location unique if they want to. The next area that should be unique are the side quests. Skyrim did a pretty good job with its side quests. We had the various factions, the war going on, and we also had the amazing Daedric item quests. But you know what game Bethesda made recently that didn't have good side quests? That's right, Ultra Foul of. Fall Tofu Hour? No, that's not it. Oaf Full Tour. Okay, but in all seriousness, it's Fallout 4. But it might as well have been called Oaf Full Tour because the game's side quests just felt like an awful tour of the map. Fallout 4 had way too many Radiant quests, and the quests just made you run and fetch something. I'm hoping to God that Elder Scrolls 6 learns its lesson and limits the Radiant quests. The main story should be amazing, but there should also be plenty of unique quests and storylines that exist outside of the main story. Please, Bethesda, don't make the same mistake you did with Fallout 4. Number 5. Wider variety of playstyles. The Elder Scrolls games don't really have a wide variety of playstyles. No matter what, you have to kill someone to get something to give to someone else. But how cool would it be if the next game was like Dishonored and had non-lethal options? I think it would be super cool if other playstyles like a rogue were made room for, and this would give the player a lot more freedom. I mean, just imagine if you could talk your way out of everything without having to kill anyone. That would be an awesome change and something that would make the speech tree actually useful. This is definitely the smallest improvement that I have on this list, but it would be nice if Bethesda could find a way to integrate other playstyles that are different than just the typical warrior or mage. Number 6. Add meaning to the game. The Elder Scrolls games in recent years don't seem to have a lot of meaning or philosophical insight, and that is fine for most people because it's just a game. But Morrowind did offer the player some genuinely thought-provoking questions and themes that weren't just surface level. Oblivion dumbed it down compared to Morrowind, but Skyrim went even further to the point where the choices and conflicts just feel plain stupid at times. For example, with the Imperials and Stormcloaks, they could have made a better effort to make the argument for each side have more substance, but instead you have to pick between either being a racist or someone who doesn't tolerate religions. I would love if Bethesda added conflicts in the game that had valid arguments for each side rather than being dumbed down feuds. Considering they've done this in the past with Morrowind, and even the main story of Fallout 4, where you can make arguments for each faction, I hope the next Elder Scrolls game faces the player with much more difficult, nuanced decisions. That about wraps up my thoughts for improvements that Elder Scrolls 6 needs to have. I really hope they take their time with this game, and I think they will, considering it has already been so long. So there's really no point in rushing the game out now. Whether or not this game will succeed is an entirely different question, because maybe we're all putting way too much hype on this game, and now it has some impossible standards to meet. Either way, I'm hoping for the best, but preparing for the worst. That's all I have for this video, and please let me know your thoughts in the comments below over Elder Scrolls 6. Thank you so much for watching. We just passed 500 subs, which is absolutely insane. I know that might seem small compared to some other YouTubers, but the fact that there are 500 of you guys who decided that I was worth hitting the sub button for honestly just means the world to me. From the bottom of my heart, thank you so much. And as always, if you made it this far, thank you, I love you, and I genuinely hope that you have a great rest of your day.